The topic of discussion that we'll be dealing right now is infantile hypertrophic pyloric stenosis. Now, here we'll talk about this topic by looking toward this note, and then we'll move toward what? We'll move toward Robbins, right? And we'll just correlate our note with this Robbins, right? Okay, now let us begin our discussion. Now, before getting into discussion, the first thing that I would like to take you toward is these, right? These words: hypertrophic pyloric stenosis, right? Stenosis means what? Narrowing, right? It means narrowing. Now, why there is narrowing? Okay, let's talk about where there will be narrowing. There will be narrowing in the region of pylorus, right? Pylorus. Pylorus is a part of stomach. Now, why there will be narrowing in pylorus? There will be narrowing in pylorus because of what? Because of hypertrophic, right? Because of increase in cell size, right? Cell size. So these are the three things. That means stenosis in pylorus region because of hypertrophic, right? Now as I've already said, right, as there will be what? There will be, okay, let us say this is our stomach, right? This is our stomach. Okay, this is our stomach. Now what is going on is, in this pylorus region there will be stenosis. Hypertrophy will occur right here, and there will be stenosis, right? And because of this being hypertrophed, what will happen is our food content, right? Our food content will not be able to pass here, right? It will not be able to pass here properly. Okay, it will not be able to pass here properly. What will happen is there will be onset of regurgitation. What will happen? There will be onset of regurgitation. Now, as there will be onset of regurgitation, what will happen is these content of stomach they will start being they will start being thrown out of our stomach, and that is what we say what? Projectile vomiting will take place, right? Projectile vomiting just after feeding, right? Just after feeding. One important thing that I would like to mention right here is this infantile hypertrophic pyloric stenosis was earlier called as congenital hypertrophic pylorus stenosis, right? The word congenital, right? But now it is not called so, because now it is confirmed that it is not present at the time of birth. It is not present at the time of birth. It will occur, right, after some week after birth. That means from it occurs 3 to 6 weeks after birth, right? That means we are talking about child one. So what will happen here is, as we are talking about clinical condition, the food content will not be able to pass here so properly, right? It will not be able to pass here so properly. So the child will start what? There will be onset of projectile vomiting, right? As the food content is not being utilized, what will happen? The child will demand of refeeding, right? The child will demand of refeeding. Okay, another one condition is there, that is Olai pump, right? And it is also important clinical feature, as we have already mentioned that there will be hypertrophic in the region of pylorus. That means there will be increase in cell mass. As there will be increase in cell mass, you can see the bulge out structure right here, right? Okay, this is what we called Olai lump. Now talking about its character, it is 1 to 2 centimeter in diameter. It is firm, ovoid, as you can see right here, and obviously it is what? It is abdominal mass, especially abdominal mass of what? Pylorus region. Okay, now in order to diagnose it, right, how we will diagnose it? We will diagnose it with the help of what? USC. How we will treat it? Simply we will resect it, right, and that is called pyloromyotomy, right? Pyloromyotomy. Okay, we talked about what? We talked about clinical feature, we talked about diagnosis and treatment. Let us talk about now. It is associated with, right? It is associated with adverse syndromes, Down syndrome, and it is also more prevalent when the child is being exposed to erythromycin or azithromycin. But why, right? How the child will be exposed to erythromycin and azithromycin? We can say mother is being what? Our mother, right? Mother is being medicated with erythromycin or azithromycin, and while breastfeeding, there can be the high chance that the child will also get exposed to these erythromycin, right? And these erythromycin are motilin receptor agonist, right? Motilin receptor agonist. So and these occurs in first 2 weeks of life, right? These occur in first 2 weeks of life. So we talked about all these things, right? Now let's correlate with Robbins, right? Now here what we have is pyloric stenosis. It is same thing, right? It can be congenital. We already mentioned it can be congenital or acquired. right? We're talking it as infantile hypertrophic pyloric stenosis, right? Now it is more prevalent in the case of male, right? Okay, it's talking here, it is talking about incidence 1 per 300 or 900, right? It is more common in monozygotic twins. It is associated with Turner's Edwards syndrome, right? And we talked about erythromycin and azithromycin, that how they can be exposed to child, right? And this occurs in 2 weeks of life, right? And we talked about the time in which the child was showing clinical features, right? And there will be the onset of regurgitation, projectile, non-bilous. Why non-bilous? Because here in the region of pylorus we don't have bile exposure yet, because bile exposure will take in the place of duodenum, right? But till now the food content is just the food content has just reached pylorus, so the food content is non-bilous, right? Vomiting will take place after feeding, and as there will be vomiting after feeding, what will happen? The child will demand a frequent refeeding, right? So the child will demand a frequent refeeding. We talked about firm ovoid, right? 1 to 2 centimeter abdominal mass, and that is called olive plump, right? And we talked about how we were going to diagnose it through ultrasonography, USC, right? And we talked about what is treatment, that is muscular resection, that is myotomy, and that is what pyloromyotomy, right? Okay, and this was about pyloric stenosis or infantile hypertrophic pylorus stenosis. So this much for the discussion. Hope to meet you at the next lecture. Thank you and have a great time.